Lawmakers is brought to you in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and through the financial support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Lawmakers. I'm Mark McDonald. If you're a regular viewer, you know we usually come to you from the State House. This week, the State House is not in session, and we have the opportunity to get two of our newest legislators from the area into the studio. So here we are in Chatham this weekend. Senator Andy Manar, welcome.
Thank you.
And C.D. Davidsmeyer from Jacksonville, Representative.
Thank
you for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Mentioned that you both are new to your position. Andy, you're not quite as new because you worked in Senator Cullerton's his chief of staff, but C.D., you are new to the State House.
Extremely new.
You were in the family business in Jacksonville.
Yes, sir.
Now you're going to be a full-time legislator, and you were appointed to fill Jim Watson's seat.
Correct.
How did you feel when you found out it was you?
Well, you know, it was a very short but long system to choose his replacement. It was really the first interview that I had been to since probably in the last 8 years. So it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, and you had not been in the political realm, so you had to sort of work your way through it.
Correct.
Why do you think they chose you?
You know, I think having some experience in both the public and private sector gave me a leg up. I do follow pretty closely with the state politics and was very involved at the local level as well. Mm-hmm.
You were a city councilman.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Senator Andy Manar, you, as I mentioned, you had a political background as well, but you were the Macoupin County chair. Yes. For a while, and you served for years in Senator Cullerton's office, part of the time as his chief of staff. Mm-hmm. So you probably feel like you're very familiar with where you're going.
Well, I am familiar with it. I think that brings maybe a unique perspective to the office that maybe others don't, but I think ultimately everybody brings their life experience, you know, to whatever office they run for and are elected to, ultimately.
Let's talk about your family and your life experience a little bit.
Yeah, my wife Trish and I have been married. We have 3 children. Abby is 7, Will is 5, and Ben is 3. She's from Greene County, so she grew up there. We met here in Springfield when I was actually working as an entry-level staffer at the state senate, and I commuted from my hometown, where I still live in Bunker Hill, to Springfield every day. So we live a few blocks from where I grew up, and my children attend schools a few blocks from our home. So. It's good to stay in your hometown.
Yeah.
You know, some things have changed, arguably not for the better over the years, especially as the economy has suffered. But we're hoping to reverse those things.
It's not your goal to ever to move to a large city or to take up residence in Springfield or anything like that?
Well, you know, the district, the 48th Senate District is diverse. It's equal parts urban and rural. And so for a downstate Senate district, the diversity brings, you know, both challenges and blessings in terms of an elected official. But, you know, my roots are there, and, you know, I hope to serve the entire district, no matter which community or which neighborhood in a particular city.
Let's stay in your district for just a moment, because you've got one weird district. Yeah. You got a little bit of Decatur, you got a little bit of Springfield. Then you go through and you've got that swath that goes through Taylorville and down through Montgomery and into Macoupin County and all the way down to Bunker Hill, and as far down as Brighton, past where you live. You say it's diverse, but it's also huge.
Yeah, it's a large district, and you know, Representative Davidsmeyer has you know, quite a geographic span, you know, in his rep district as well, just to the west of the 48th Senate District. But you know, one thing, and I learned this during the campaign, you know, one thing that I think unites no matter which part of the district, you know, you're talking about, is the need for education funding reform. You know, those issues, and that particular issue affects District 186 in Springfield and the small towns in the southern part of the district equally, and the need for some economic renewal. I mean, there's no doubt that the economy has been very difficult on communities in downstate Illinois, and whether you're talking about a neighborhood in the urban part of Decatur, or you're talking about a small town of Brighton, things need to change, and we need to turn some things around.
CD, you know, we talked about his district a little bit. Now you're the 100th
Correct.
House district. Describe your district to us.
My district is all or part of 9 counties, which is a very large geographic area. We go from Morgan County all the way across through Scott and Pike, Calhoun, Greene, Jersey, some of Macoupin County, go down into Godfrey, into Madison County, and a couple of precincts in Sangamon County as well. So it's a large area, and I guess I'm blessed to enjoy spending time behind the wheel.
Jacksonville is your biggest community in your district, I take it?
Correct.
So yours is primarily rural.
Yes.
And you're going to be bumping up against issues that are probably different, some the same, but some much different than Andy's going to.
Yeah, and I think we'll have a lot of the same issues. When you talk about education funding, a lot of the school districts, whether they be urban or rural, they're similar. A lot of the poverty issues. Obviously we have a lot more transportation issues as far as education goes, but there's a lot of similar issues, and we need to work to bring those to light and work on those issues together.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned Jacksonville. Now Jim Watson was the rep that whose place you took. Do you call on him for help?
He will be available. He has made himself available. There's a lot of different things being thrown into a lame duck session and learning new as opposed to being part of the system throughout. So it will be a learning curve. I've had others offer to help me out that are still in the house, and he's offered to help me along the way.
You've both been sworn in, so you've already served part of your first term, but it doesn't really start in earnest until the end of the month, or I think one of you goes in the 2nd of February. Is there orientation for junior senators like yourself?
Yeah, there was. It was extensive, and that occurred right after the election, during the first week of veto session, and it's very helpful. Certainly when you come into office in the legislature, there's all kinds of issues that are thrown at you from any different direction, and because of the diversity of the state, some of those things are. The orientation I found, even having worked at the Senate from, being an intern, 12 years ago up to being elected to the office, I found it very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Of course, you had worked in the Senate, so I mean, you're familiar with the workings of it. Who conducts the orientation? Is it a partisan orientation?
No, it's actually nonpartisan, and I think that's the best part about it. Is it brings House members and Senate members together of both parties from all across the state. And it's very collaborative in nature, and it's conducted by a nonpartisan commission run by the legislature. So the approach is almost toward, let's prepare you to solve some problems. Let's give you information that is nonpartisan in nature, and hopefully you can learn the process quickly, and we're going to arm you with some good information, and you can go solve some problems for the state.
CD, did you go through a similar orientation?
I came in right after the orientation, actually. Which hopefully won't put me at a disadvantage. I'm sure that information will be out there. We all need to work with the same information to come to, to reach the ultimate goal of fixing some of these problems. So I think it's important that we're working with the same information, as you said, and we may have different routes of getting there, but I think we're all working towards the same.
You both come to your new jobs from very different angles, and I'll start with you, CD, but I have the same question for you, Andy. Being a Republican in the House or the Senate, either one, is going to be kind of a lonely place because you are overruled by a supermajority.
True.
What do you expect to be able to accomplish as a Republican in the minority?
I really hope that this will be an opportunity for all of us to work across the aisle. It is an issue that affects everybody, as I said earlier, urban, rural, a lot of the issues are the same. So I think that we can come to an agreement on a lot of these issues to help everyone out.
It was, and staying with you, CD, it was one of the, as I talked to some of the outgoing legislators, senators and reps, it was some of the most frustrating parts of their career has been the last several years, because of the lack of bipartisanship, and because of, as a Republican, for instance, would tell me, we just don't have any say in what goes on. And I'm just wondering if you're prepared for this kind of frustration.
I'm not naive to think that the frustration will not be there. It will be there, and I'm sure it will be there within the Democratic Party, within the Republican Party, within the entire House, the entire Senate. There will be days that everyone is frustrated. But I think we've got a good caucus. I've met a number of people across the aisle that are very sincere in working across the aisle, and I hope that is the case. I look forward to working with them, specifically on issues of education and a number of other service
You've
areas.
mentioned education several times. Is that
Yes.
is that an issue that you have a particular interest in?
It is. Our kids, they're the future of our area. We need to make sure that they get educated properly, become a contributing member of society, and hopefully eventually move back to our communities.
Senator Andy Manar, that same question back to the partisan nature of where the legislature is right now. 40 Democrats and 19 Republicans, I think.
Yeah.
Now that puts you in a very favorable position because a lot of your ideas can get the skids are greased. But do you foresee a time when the two parties will work a little more fluently together?
Well, I think just to back up to your question, Mark, I think the assumption that because one caucus is larger, either by a single vote or by 20 votes, that a Democrat can come to the table with an idea and just let it sail out of the Senate is one that I just don't see happening. I don't think it's ever worked that way, and just because the margin between the two parties as a result of the past election is bigger than it's ever been in this state's history, I don't think we should assume that that's going to change anything. But I've advocated for quite some time that the need for bipartisanship in this state has never been greater, regardless of the size of the majority of either party. And in Macoupin County, which is heavily Democratic, one of the most Democratic counties in the state, when I was the board chairman, we made sure that bipartisanship wasn't just talked about, but we actually did it. I appointed a Republican to chair committees. If those people were the best people to do the job, that's what we did. And those are small things that I think can go a long way in terms of maybe addressing some of the frustration that's in the legislature, but certainly reaching a hand across the aisle, not just to do it, but just to improve the result. I think that those things can go a long way.
You both come in at a very interesting time. Interesting and probably somewhat negative for you because people have a very low opinion of what the legislature and the governor have been able to accomplish in the last several years. The Blagojevich administration was very discouraging for people, and since then they haven't seen a lot of results either. And so I'm wondering, coming in as you are, both new now and both probably full of vim and vigor, is it a difficult time to enter?
I think it is, and I think having knocked on thousands of doors during the campaign, people clearly are frustrated with state government, and they don't view the legislature, for whatever reason, they don't view the legislature as a place that can readily solve problems in a quick and efficient way and produce an outcome that betters not just their lives, but the direction our state is going. And I think that's what elections are about. You have a new class coming in to office. They bring a new set of ideas, maybe a new approach, but ultimately things come together, and I hope 2 years from now, when this General Assembly is over, we'll be able to go down a list of problems that we've solved.
CD, do you feel that negativity too, or am I imagining it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, everybody's frustrated with the direction that the government's been going, state government, for the last 40, 50, 60 years. I mean, we've been heading down this path. These problems have been slowly creating and gaining speed all along, and we're finally at a head to a point where we need to fix them. And I think what we can both agree on is we're at a point where we have to fix these problems. And so it's going to take a lot of ideas, and there's going to be good ideas put forward, there's going to be bad ideas, and hopefully we can come somewhere down the middle where we can make progress.
Okay, let's start on some specific ones then. One of the first ones you're going to be asked, at least in the governor's viewpoint, one of the first ones you're going to be asked to fix is the pension reform. where we find ourselves, I think, $90 billion underfunded in the pensions, which also ties into the fact that we're way behind in our budget, and our vendors are waiting 6 months to be paid. To most of us on the outside looking in, this is the number one issue, and it is. The governor says it's the number one issue. Andy, let me start with you. How does, looking at it from your fresh eyes, how does one come about tackling this problem?
It has to be a collaborative effort. I think Governor Quinn is correct when he says that the growing pension obligation in the state's annual budget is affecting the state's ability to pay bills and to deliver quality services, schools, health care, aid for the poor. Those things are all important, but they're intersecting in a big way right now, and we have to approach this in a collaborative effort, in my opinion. And to the extent that that should be done, I don't believe that it is. And my approach, whether it's this problem with the pension system or any other problem, is you have to bridge a divide in this state. And it's a geographic divide, it's a partisan divide, but ultimately you have to put people at a table. They have to have an honest conversation about what is to be expected, and there has to be some path toward a positive outcome, and maybe that path takes a little bit longer than what some people want. But ultimately we have to be on a good path, and I think putting people at a table is something that needs to start right away.
CD, do you have any specific ideas about what might make this thing work that hasn't worked in the past?
I think we need to take an honest look at the pension system and say, private entities can't have a system like this. Why should the government continue to be able to have a system like this? We need to say future hirees, they need to have an option of taking ownership of their retirement and seriously look at a 401k style retirement system. So they do have the opportunity. So eventually the government can't say, we know we promised you this, but we can't afford it anymore, so we're going to take it away. And that's the ultimate goal, to make sure that the retirement is theirs, and they know it's theirs, and they do have that strength in their future.
So you're looking at a model closer to a privately funded retirement.
And my view is that we need to work that direction. I don't think it can happen tomorrow, but we need to look and say, we've already got a multi-tier system. I don't think it goes far enough. So we need to look at that again and probably go that direction, bite the bullet.
Okay, another issue that's sure to come up. It did come up in the last time. It didn't get out of the Senate for a vote, but it did come up. Same-sex marriage. This is sure to be promoted again in this coming session. Your thoughts, Andy?
I would want to see a final version of the bill. There's several versions and different language that's been introduced and amended, and those go back several years. And if you look at other states, that have the few that have taken this step, I think we can learn some lessons on how they did it, and what proposals are in front of other states. But there's a few things that came out of the Senate hearing that I listened to, and I think there are some concerns with the drafting. But ultimately, I would reserve my judgment until I saw a final product in front of me on my desk.
Is there a same-sex marriage plan that you could support?
I believe there could be. I think it's important that equality is something that we always think about in this state. I think we should celebrate that, and we should always try to promote it when we can. But I think some of the points that were made in the Senate hearing from clergy and from the faith community were valid points, and I think we should do everything we can to address those points before a bill is advanced.
CD?
I've always looked at marriage as a religious institution between a man, a woman, and God. That said, when we look at these bills, we have to make sure that it does not infringe on religious freedom, because quite frankly, the bills that were being looked at, basically if you took any type of public help, whether it be a tax exemption or something of that sort, that could be pursued or construed as public giving or taking, and therefore you could be required to allow your facility or allow something of that sort to be used in that way for gay marriage or
can you foresee
else.
a state, Illinois, being a same-sex marriage state?
I don't know. With the majorities and minorities that we have, you never know.
Could you vote for it under any circumstances?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. School safety. There's going to be a school safety summit this weekend. The governor has called people together. And we just saw on a national level in the state of New York enacting some laws on semi-automatic weapons. That's going to come up. Senator, semi-automatic weapons, do you have an opinion?
Well, I met with a large group of superintendents this morning specific to the school safety issue, and I think the valid point that comes from all of these discussions about violence in general and specific to gun violence is when we have acts of violence in schools, that the common threads between all of these are people who are mentally ill and people that should not have weapons in the first place. And I think those are the things that we should concentrate on moving forward.
Mm-hmm. So you're taking the path of let's identify the mentally ill and get them help before we try to control the weapons.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
that's
and I think that's based on just the history of what we've seen unfold in our country in recent years. People that ought not to have weapons, we should do everything we can in the state's power to prevent that from happening. And I think we can do a better job at that.
Representative?
I would agree with that. I think that's one easy place where we can start and work together and say, we've got a problem with mental health, not only in our state, but in this nation. We need to look at it and have an honest discussion, make some progress towards it. It is not the law-abiding citizens, your everyday man or woman who is pursuing these crimes, and I don't think they should lose their rights because of it.
Illinois is an energy-rich state, and we see this going around the country where this system of extracting natural gas and oil called fracking is being used, and it's a large topic of conversation and regulation right now. There are no real regulations yet in Illinois for fracking. What do you think?
Yeah, this is something I don't know a whole lot about, but clearly it's moving quickly. And other states have taken action, and there's been different proposals in front of the legislature, especially in the past 12 months. But clearly, it's a new technology. It probably has short-term impact, but more importantly, I think we need to take a real look at the long-term impact. Illinois is an energy-rich state. My district has 3 coal mines.
Tons of coal.
And power plants, probably more than, if not more, but pretty close than any other Senate district in the state. So not only does the district that I represent produce power, it also has some pretty large consumers of power too, especially in Decatur. So these are all important issues. We have to make sure Illinois remains competitive. We have to make sure coal is still part of our energy equation because it's the largest source of power, and it also employs a lot of people in places that have high unemployment. So I think all of these things are in the mix, but this is something I need to drill down on.
Drill down on?
Yeah.
Okay.
No pun intended. I
Yeah.
guess, yeah.
CD, you have an opinion on where this should go?
I think we have a lot of opportunity. I think it's going to take a lot of good research. Some of this fracking, from my understanding, has been done in one way or another for years and years. So there is some form of data, whether it be other states or a little bit here and there in the state of Illinois. But as we move forward, obviously we have to make sure that it's done in a safe and environmental way, but it also has to be done in a way that allows companies to keep their technologies and things like that safe for competition reasons. It also has to be done in a way that allows landowners to understand the mineral rights and things of that sort that they will be dealing with.
I wanted to make sure we saved a couple of minutes at the end and we were successful, so I could give each one of you a chance to talk about an issue that you really wanted to pursue on your first term. CD, you want to go first?
I'd love to. We've talked a lot about education. It's very near and dear to my heart. My kids I have a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. I want to make sure that they can grow up, go through a good school system, have all the opportunities that I was provided in my hometown of Jacksonville. And eventually, whether they decide to go to school in Illinois or move on to another state. I'd like them to eventually be able to come back and be proud of the state of Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Andy?
I think I agree with Representative Davidsmeyer. We have to address our education system in this state, and I think that ties directly into our economy, especially in downstate. We can't. We have to produce students, and we not only have to have the best schools, we have to have world-class schools in Central Illinois. And I think it's a lofty goal, but we have to address equity first and foremost among school districts in this state. We have some that spend in the suburbs of Chicago that spend 3 times as much per student as school districts in both CD's district and my own. And that inherently just is something that we have to get back to in the legislature and address that issue.
Well, gentlemen, this has been the dodge ever since I've lived in Illinois for 25
Right.
years. That's been the issue that they have never been able to come to agreement on. So maybe this year.
Yep.
Thank you both.
Hopefully so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy Manar and C.D. Davidsmeyer, thanks for joining us, and for you for joining us. This first session of theirs is bound to be an interesting one. We'll come back to you in a month from the State House with an update. Thanks for watching Lawmakers. I'm Mark McDonald. See you next time.
Lawmakers is brought to you in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and through the financial support of viewers like you. Thank you.